And good afternoon. I'm being slightly behind myself. I'm now turning off my telephone so we won't be interrupted while we chat. And welcome to everyone. I think this may be the last of the pleasant fall days because the temperature's supposed to plummet by 20 degrees tomorrow. It's still a nice day out there. And I hope you're all well and with me for our second look at As You Like It. Hello, James in White Oak. Usually the first up. Well done, James. And the other James, you see. Jameses are early. And so, yes, second part of As You Like It, the aspects of love, which I am doing in preparation for the production of As You Like It, which is currently in rehearsal. Tickets are on sale now. I hope you've booked your season tickets. I hope you're a subscriber. But even if you haven't, I hope you book tickets to see As You Like It, because I promise you it's going to be quite delightful. And if you enjoyed Midsummer Night's Dream, you're going to love this. And if you missed Midsummer Night's Dream, well, you can make up for it by coming to see As You Like It. It's got a great cast. It's really gorgeous. I'm enjoying rehearsals, and I have to watch it every day. So I know you're going to love it. Hello, Grace. Dark Halloween nights have arrived. Yes, and it's soon going to get darker because we'll be moving the clocks again. Hello, Linda. Good afternoon to you. So as I say, subscriptions and single tickets are on sale now. Subscriptions for the season and single tickets for As You Like It are on sale. And also available now are the tickets for the first of our Expand the Canon series, which are free of charge. There is no admission price for these readings, but we do ask you to book because there is limited seating. And in fact, the first performance of the first piece is already booked out. We're doing 2 readings on a day, and the afternoon reading is already booked out. So if you want to come to that, information is in the brochures, information is on the website. Just let us know you want to come, and we will put your name down on a seat. Of course, subscribers get priority booking, but that should not deter you. We hope to see you there. Hello, David, from a very pleasant and bright autumn day in Stratford-upon-Avon. Well, it's lovely that you've joined us to a very bright and pleasant afternoon here in Pittsburgh. But as I say, it's going to get suddenly very colder. The leaves are beginning finally to fall. The raking of the garden has to be done, and I dread it. As usual, we say thank you to the Allegheny Foundation for their very generous support of these webinars. They've supported us for the year, and we live in hope that they will continue to support us into the future. What other little things do I have to tell you? We've got a special appeal out to bring us up to the end of October. And we've sent an email to everybody on our email list. So if you've got one, you've got one. If you haven't got one, you'll be getting one in the next day or two. And all we're doing is asking for a very small thing. If you've donated to us in the past, if you plan to donate in the future, no matter how much a normal donation may be, we are asking you before the end of this month, before the 30th of October, just to send us $25. That's all. Just $25. But there are a lot of people out there who keep thinking, oh yeah, I must send a donation. Or I've sent a donation. Well, and we really are very grateful for every dollar that we get. But we're asking for this particular one. We're calling it 25 for 25. The 30th of this month is the opening night of our 25th season. And so we're asking everybody on our mailing list, please just send us $25 just to celebrate that night. That would be a wonderful gesture. It would mean a huge amount to us, and helps us guarantee that as we move forward into the next 25 years. So there you are, 25 for 25 by the 30th of this month. You can do it on the website. You can send a check. Don't send cash, always dangerous. But every donation, if you want to make a donation, there's the web address, pictheatre.org, and we'd be very, very grateful. We're also very grateful to City Paper in Pittsburgh, who voted us, we were one of the finalists in the best virtual production of last year. We came second. Okay, we came second. It's all right. by the votes of the readers, and that was for our radio-style presentation of Christmas carols. So we're really pleased about that, and thank you all who voted for us. One other thing, it would be remiss of me not to mention that during the course of this past week, one of the greatest exponents of Irish music passed away. That was Paddy Maloney, who was the founder of the Chieftains. He was a remarkable man with a remarkable talent and the most wonderful personality, and he changed the face, not of Irish music, but of how the world appreciated it. He really did put Irish music at the forefront with the Chieftains, and so we send from Pict our commiserations, our regrets, our sadness to Paddy's family, and particularly to his daughter Aideen, who is an actress living in New York and a dear friend. So let us mark the passing of the wonderful Paddy. So anyway, how are we doing? Oh, we should, everybody, the latecomers are late now. So, as you like it, webinar number 2. Now, last week, we took a look at the relationship, if you can call it that, between Orlando and Rosalind. We looked at how the understanding of love and the feelings of the lovers could be expressed safely while at a distance, since the whole encounter between them was by proxy, thanks to the fact that Rosalind was disguised as a boy, Ganymede. It's an interesting relationship as the play develops, because what you're seeing is a man discussing his feelings about a woman, not with her, but with a boy, not knowing that the boy is the girl. But there is an underlying, somewhat homoerotic sense to that as well. But anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that one, because there are other issues I want to cover. In parallel to that, when we are in the Forest of Arden, there is another love story being played out in the forest by some of the locals. So we have the relationship between the courtly lovers, the city lovers now hiding in the forest, one of them in disguise, and then we have a parallel relationship going on by the country people. One might, from one perspective, which is that of Silvius, the man in this case, describe this as idyllic love in terms of the aspects of love we're talking about. The love of the true natural poet, the true dreamer. In another sense, it can be thought of as Shakespeare's view of a dysfunctional relationship, and that's the best way to describe it. It's a very modern term in that sense, but we all understand what that means. The love that Silvius feels is, put very simply, an annoyance to she who is so loved. Silvius loves Phoebe. Phoebe doesn't like or indeed want to be loved, at least not by Silvius. So here Shakespeare gives us the counterpoint to the romance of Rosalind and Orlando, a couple who can't fulfill their love because they are in hiding, in plain sight, nevertheless, and a couple who can't because one of them doesn't want to. We have here not only idyllic love, but also unrequited love in that same country relationship. It's tragic, isn't it? I mean, this is pure tragedy, and we're laughing at it, but you know what I think about why we laugh at tragedy. Now, in Act 2, Scene 4, we first meet Silvius, explaining love to his older and much, much more experienced friend, Corin. And it's very clear from Corin's reaction what he thinks of Silvius's loving. When Silvius has been speaking to him of his wooing technique, which clearly doesn't work, Corin's first words tell us, concerning the way Silvius talks about love, that is the way to make her scorn you still. Silvius, like most young people, has very little regard for older people's views on loving. Nothing changes. No, Corin, being old, thou canst not guess, though in thy youth thou wast a true lover, as ever sighed upon a midnight pillow. Like all young lovers, only he knows what it is to love, and that he is the perfect example. If thy love were ever like to mine, as sure I think, did never man love so. Oh yes, young people, they're all the same. He continues, Thou thence did ne'er love so heartily. If thou rememberest not the slightest folly that ever love did make thee run into, thou hast not loved. Or if thou hast not sat, as I do now, wearying thy hearer in thy mistress' praise, thou hast not loved. How often have we sat listening miserably to young people talking about the anguish of their relationships? Or if thou hast not broke from company abruptly, as my passion now makes me, thou hast not loved. Oh, Phoebe, 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 how many of our young people have not locked themselves in the room because they're in love? It's exactly the same thing. Shakespeare understood it, and nothing changes. The human condition is the human condition. We all know teenagers like that, and they were around in Shakespeare's time just as much as they are in our own. In Act 3, we see Silvius, as it were, at work on Phoebe. And we see Phoebe in full rejection mode. Now, I often feel that I have as much sympathy for her as I do for him. He does rather wear his heart on his sleeve, almost like a badge of honor. Sweet Phoebe, do not scorn me, Phoebe. Say that you love me not, but say not so in bitterness. In other words, you may not like me, but be nice to me. The common executioner, he goes on, whose heart the accustomed sight of death makes hard, falls not the axe upon the humbled neck, but first begs pardon. Will you sterner be than he that dies and lives by bloody drops? Phoebe responds to this rather sad, indeed, dare one say, pathetic request with the cruelest reaction to a lover's declaration of love that there can be. Logic. Logic is always the killer of romantic idyls. I would not be thy executioner, she says. I fly thee, for I would not injure thee. In other words, I'm avoiding you because if I didn't, I might tell you what I really think of you. She's being fair there. But then, she goes on, cruelty upon cruelty. Thou tell'st me there is murder in mine eye. 'Tis pretty sure and very probable that eyes that are the frailest, softest things, who shut their coward gates on atomies, should be called tyrants, butchers, murderers. Really? Silvius is a great one for romantic illusion, but Phoebe persists with logic, and logic can defeat anything, especially romance. She goes on, let's have an experiment. Now I do frown on thee with all my heart, and if my eyes can wound thee, now let them kill thee. Now counterfeit to swoon. Why now, fall down. Or if thou canst not, oh, for shame, lie not to say my eyes are murderers. Now show me the wound mine eyes have made in thee. And in all of this, she's telling him in no uncertain terms that all of his illusions are equally nonsense. This is a most dysfunctional relationship, if indeed it can be called a relationship. But the important point to remember is Silvius's love is nonetheless real. It's perpetual. He is profoundly and deeply in love with this woman. We can see no apparent reason why he would be in love with her. All she does is insult him. But we all know relationships like that. Some of us may even have been in them. That in spite of logic, you still love. Because love is superior to logic. Logic may defeat it in terms of just word usage or ideas or illusions, but the love itself can be perpetual in spite of that. Shakespeare is demonstrating an aspect of love. He responds to her, if ever, as that ever may be near, you meet in some fresh cheek the power of fancy, then shall you know the wounds invisible that love's keen arrows make. When I talk about being wounded by my love for you and by you, it's not real wounds. It's wounds inside, in the heart. You are hurting my heart, and I still love you. If you fall in love with someone else, someone who doesn't love you like you don't love me, then you'll know what it's like. He does sound somewhat pathetic. But she responds to him. Fair enough, fine. But till that time, come thou not near me. And when that time comes, affect me with thy mocks. Pity me not. Till that time, I shall not pity thee. She is so mean. But that's a woman for you. And Shakespeare wants to point that fact out. So at that very moment, he has the young man, Ganymede, who is in fact the young woman, Rosalind, who has overheard this exchange, let Phoebe have a little of her own medicine. And even though it is the boy, Ganymede, who appears to be talking, it is the woman, Rosalind, who is reacting to the woman, Phoebe. Who might be your mother, she says, that you insult, exalt, and all at once over the wretched being Silvius? What though you have no beauty, as by my faith I see no more than you, than without candle may go dark to bed. In other words, don't carry a candle up to the bedchamber, because your boyfriend might see your face. Must you be proud and pitiless, and in spite of, or perhaps even because of the insult to her looks, Phoebe seems a little bit smitten, and Rosalind notices. What means this? Why do you look on me? I see no more in you than in the ordinary of nature's sail work. Odds my little life, I think she means to tangle my eyes too, and Phoebe does mean to. No, faith, proud mistress, hope not after it. And she goes on with the insults, because clearly the insults have had an effect. 'Tis not your inky brows, your black silk hair, your bugle eyeballs, or your cheek of cream that can entame my spirits to your worship. Nobody can cast scorn on a woman quite like another woman can. But because it comes from the mouth, or seems to come from the mouth, of this very attractive young man, Phoebe considers it even more attractive. Then Rosalind turns her attentions to Silvius, because she doesn't think much of him either. This kind of love angers her. You foolish shepherd, wherefore do you follow her? You are 1,000 times a properer man than she a woman. I love this insult. 'Tis such fools as you that make the world full of ill-favoured children. 'Tis not her glass, but you that flatters her. It's savage. She is really going for Phoebe now, through Silvius. Out of you, she sees herself more proper than any of her lineaments can show her. She's only attractive because you tell her she is. Without your praise, she isn't much to look at. And then back to Phoebe again. Mistress, know yourself. Down on your knees. Thank heaven fasting for a good man's love. That's important. Rosalind, who has not got, or seems to have lost, the love of the good man that she wants, seems incapable of capturing and holding on to that love that she feels, resents another woman who is rejecting the offer of love. I must tell you friendly in your ear, she says to Phoebe, sell where you can, you're not for all markets. Oh, that is so cold. Cry the man mercy, love him, take his offer. Foul is most foul, being foul to be a scoffer. Take her to thee, shepherd, fare you well. And having made this ultimate insult to both of them, Rosalind attempts to depart. Her timing is excellent. I mean, she would have made a wonderful actor, which, of course, in this play she is. But the effect on Phoebe is instant. Sweet youth, I pray you, chide a year together. I'd rather hear you chide than this man woo. Oh, she is smitten. She is smitten by the insults. She's smitten by the truth coming out of the mouth of this boy. But she's also smitten by the look of this boy. I'll come to that in a moment. Rosalind refers to Silvius, takes his side, if you like. He's fallen in love with your foulness, and she'll fall in love with my anger. If it be so, I'll answer thee with frowning looks. I'll sauce her with bitter words, which is exactly what Phoebe has been doing to Silvius. Why are you looking at me? For no ill will I bear you, says Phoebe. Don't fall in love with me, says Rosalind, for I am falser than vows made in wine, which of course she is, because she's a woman. Besides, I like you not. If you know my house, it is at the Tuft of Olives, here hard by. That's a little go away, a little closer suggestion. And a final insult to Phoebe. Look on him better. Be not proud. Though all the world could see, none could be so abused in sight as he. The fact that he loves you is abusing himself. And here Shakespeare gives us another example of the power of love. That just as with Rosalind and Orlando, it can happen at first sight. And who among us has not? Every one of us has felt that happen. Falling in love at first sight. Even with a puppy, we feel it. It's an emotion. It's real. It happens to us. And Phoebe, with this most beautiful quote, which is actually a reference to Kit Marlowe, "Dead shepherd, now I find thy soul of might. Whoever loved that loved not at first sight." And there you have it. Just as idyllic love is being abused on every side, love at first sight raises its rather beautiful head. Unfortunately, for the wrong person, in the wrong person. And Sylvius, being a man and therefore an idiot, has another attempt. "Sweet Phoebe, pity me." To which Phoebe's only response can be, "Well, I'm sorry for you. And you have my love. Is that not neighborly?" To which Sylvius replies, "I would have you." And make no mistake, there is a clear reference there to the other kind of love that we've yet to talk about. Carnal love, desire of, for, and in the flesh. But Phoebe has a thought. "Time was, I hated you, and it's not that I bear you love, but since thou canst talk so of love so well, thy company, which else was irksome to me," she never lets it go, "I will endure, and I'll employ thee, but look for no further recompense than mine own gladness that thou art employed." And if ever there was a declaration, she's such a bitch. She wants him to be exactly what Rosalind described, her reflection, her errand boy. And he, poor fool, is so deeply in love that he agrees, and he'll come to regret it. But he makes this wonderful declaration that it just goes so far too in the wrong direction. "So holy and so perfect is my love, and I in such a poverty of grace." In other words, that it is not returned. "That I shall think it a most plenteous crop to glean the broken ears that the man after the main harvest reaps. Loose then a scattered smile, and that I'll live upon." Sometimes, regarding Sylvius, you just want to slap his face. And then her plan comes through. She says, "Do you remember that? You know that boy that was just here?" And she's going to delineate all the things about Ganymede that turn her on, right in front of Sylvius. This is Shakespeare taking the cruelty of love right to its extreme. "Think not I love him, though I ask for him. 'Tis but a peevish boy, yet he talks well. But what care I for words? Yet words do well, when he that speaks pleases those that hear." And on about his eyes, his height, his leg, his complexion, all the physical things about him. She is totally smitten. She then convinces Sylvius to be the messenger to the lovely youth. She makes Sylvius a victim, and she uses his love for her. She is wicked, but she's also in love. And therefore, love conquers all. Love can say, "Well, it was done for love, therefore it's all right." It's not. She is so devious. "I'll write him a taunting letter," she says. "Will you take it to him, Sylvius?" "Phoebe, with all my heart. He is so stupid." But he's stupid because he's in love. He delivers Phoebe's letter, and he... Sorry, I thought I turned that off. Shame on me. It's off now. You see, I'm incompetent. My associate is finding that hysterically funny. So anyway, when Sylvius delivers the letter, which is actually a love letter, Rosalind plays a very clever game. She's absolutely capable of improvising on the moment. She's amazing at it. She looks at the letter and says, "My God, Patience herself would startle at this letter and play the swaggerer. Bear this, but she says, I'm not fair, that I lack manners. Why does she write like this to me? This is a letter of your own device." "No," says Sylvius, "I don't know what's in it. Phoebe wrote it." And keeping up the pretense, Rosalind takes another opportunity of insulting Phoebe. You're a fool, and turn to the extremity of love. I saw her hand. She has a leathern hand, a freestone-coloured hand. Verily, I thought that her old gloves were on it, but it was her hand. Now, you have to understand the absolute distaste that Rosalind, not Ganymede, that Rosalind has for Phoebe, for rejecting the one thing that Rosalind craves most, to be loved. But then, in order to be cruel, to be kind, she asks Silvius a question. Do you want to hear the letter? Yes, I never heard it yet heard too much of Phoebe's cruelty, and ain't that the truth? And Rosalind reads it aloud, this letter of love from Phoebe to Ganymede, and leaves Silvius in total shock. It is an absolute letter of love. Only Celia shows true pity. Alas, poor shepherd, she says. True sympathy, true tenderness for somebody truly suffering, who has just been slapped in the face with reality. A person who has been living in a dream of love, suddenly coming face to face with the awfulness of how he's being treated. Rosalind has no such sympathy. She knows what true love, real love is, and she knows with what cruelty true love can be treated. She wants Silvius to learn this, to learn that to be truly in love, that love must be tested and proven true. Do you pity him? She says to Celia. No, he deserves no pity. Wilt thou love such a woman, to make thee an instrument and play false strains upon thee? It's not to be endured. Well, go your way. Go your way to her, for I see love has made you a tame snake. And say this to her, that if she love, a tame snake, by the way, is referring to his manhood. If she love me, I charge her to love thee, and if she will not, I will never have her unless thou entreat for her. If you be a true lover, hence, and not a word. It's a cruel scene. It's a scene demonstrating the cruelty of love. That what we will do, to the extremes that we will go to love, even if it causes pain to someone else. Love sort of fogs the mind. But by Act 5, the chickens are coming home to roost. Phoebe is furious, both with Ganymede and with Silvius. Her game is exposed. Her desires are rejected. But she won't be outdone. She uses Silvius one last time in an exchange between four lovers. Good shepherd, tell this youth what 'tis to love. And here I always think of this as Silvius's lament. It's a description of true but unrequited love. It is to be all made of sighs and tears, and so am I for Phoebe. It is to be all made of faith and service, and so am I for Phoebe. And we've seen this in him. But then he goes on, it is to be all made of fantasy, all made of passion, all made of wishes, all adoration, duty and observance, all humbleness, all patience and impatience, all purity, all trial, all observance. And in this list of things, he sums up all the foolishness and all the joys and all the pain of love and loving. Shakespeare, in a sense, is bringing all of those aspects of love together and showing just how hard and just how beautiful loving can be. So, having looked at love that is based in the poetic illusion of romance and words, we must remember that love is more than just words. And the word love has many more connotations than simply the rather gooey cards and flowers we send out on Valentine's Day. There is also, and always, the more physical aspect of love, the carnal. I would argue, for instance, that love at first sight, which is something that occurs throughout this play, with one very specific example, or two actually, if you count Rosalind and Orlando, I'll come to the other in a moment, that love at first sight is very much the carnal physical experience. I think I've mentioned before, we only have 5 ways in which any information can come to us. There is no other way. We see it, we smell it, we hear it, we touch it, we taste it. Those 5 fundamental senses is how we know the world is around us and that anything happens. There is no other way. And these are all purely physical reactions. For instance, when Romeo meets Juliet, he sees her first, he hears her next, he gets close enough to touch her, and therefore to smell, and finally, with a kiss, he gets to taste. Those 5 physical reactions, the first meeting between 2 of Shakespeare's most famous lovers. All physical reactions. The soul has little to do with them, but it is those physical reactions that inform the imagination and thereby the soul. And when Phoebe talks about Ganymede, she mentions all the physicality of him, all put together through her imagination, causes her to feel love. And what do we love when these things happen? Why do we use that word? Generally, it describes the physical. We love coffee, wine, flowers in spring, puppies, kittens, Fred Astaire, the Beatles, the Eagles. I'm aging myself here, aren't I? Game of Thrones, and for reasons that defy absolute logic, the Pirates and the Steelers. But anyway, sorry, I didn't say that. But we use the word love to define our feelings for all of these things. And yet, it is the word that we also use to define our deepest feelings for other people. So do we feel the same emotions for our partners as we do for our favorite pizza? Probably, hopefully not. What Shakespeare shows us in As You Like It, though, is that there is an entire minefield of definitions for this particular word. There are many aspects of love. But all of the above mentioned depend on an initial reaction, the physical love, the carnal. We love to see it. We love the sound of it. We love the feel of it. We love the taste of it. We love the smell of it. Desire is possibly a better word than carnal, but desire can be already an emotion, whereas the carnal is about the immediate physical reaction. So let's have a look at some of the aspects of this particular form of love within the play. Desire often starts at the point of meeting with that carnal reaction. Right at the beginning of the play, in the 3rd scene, after the wrestling and Orlando's gone back to his house and Rosalind comes back looking for him and he's gone and she's really upset. In fact, just before they departed, she said goodbye and then tells a lie. He calls us back. My pride fell with my fortunes. I'd ask him what he would. Did you call, sir? Then she can think of nothing to say. Well, you wrestled well, and you've overthrown more than your enemies. It's as close as she can get to saying, I'm really, really, really very attracted to you. You know, can we have dinner sometime? She can't get that far. But it is an immediate physical reaction. In the very next scene, we see why. Rosalind is moping again. Celia wants to know why. Why, cousin Rosalind? Cupid have mercy, not a word. Not one to throw at a dog. Is all this for your father? No, some of it is for my child's father. Has desire infected Rosalind? Love at first sight, undoubtedly, but also desire, my child's father. Well, there's only one way for that to happen. Celia may mock at this. She may be amused at the speed of Rosalind's attraction for young Orlando. She may think it a foolish, girly fantasy. By the time we get to Act 4, she will learn herself of the power of love at first sight. She will meet Orlando's brother Oliver, and bang! The scene unfolds. Oliver, who is now a good guy, having been a bad guy through the magic of theatre, has been sent by Orlando to find Ganymede, to explain to Ganymede that why he's late for his date, and to tell the adventure of the lion and the serpent. But in the scene, he spends far more time talking and being questioned by Celia. Basically, from the moment they meet, they can't take their eyes off each other. One thing is utterly certain. They seem to get on very well. Ganymede seems secondary, even though he is the subject of the visit, totally secondary to the scene, totally secondary to the conversation, until he faints, that is, and then it's a bit fussy. Now, you may think I might be reading more in than is apparent, but in fact, Shakespeare then says, I'm right. Orlando comes on with Oliver, Is it possible that on so little acquaintance you should like her, that but seeing you should love her, and loving woo, and wooing she should grant? And will you persevere to enjoy her? And Oliver responds, neither call the giddiness of it in question, the poverty of her, the small acquaintance, my sudden wooing, or her sudden consenting, but say with me, I love Aliena. Say with her that she loves me. Consent with both that we may enjoy each other. It shall be to your good. My father's house and all the revenue that was old Sir Rowland's will I estate upon you, and here live and die a shepherd. Oh boy, is he smitten. Love at first sight to marriage and giving up all the world for rustic domesticity. This is love at first sight, and she agrees. And if that wasn't enough, when Ganymede, or when as Ganymede, Rosalind, she next meets Orlando, just moments later, you get another very detailed description. Your brother and my sister no sooner met, but they looked, no sooner looked, but they loved, no sooner loved, but they sighed, no sooner sighed, but they asked one another the reason, no sooner knew the reason, but they sought the remedy. And in these degrees they made a pair of stairs to marriage, which they will climb incontinent, or else be incontinent before marriage. They are in the very wrath of love, and they will together. Clubs cannot part them. I love that phrase. They are in the very wrath of love. But their attraction for one another, which was purely sitting together, looking at one another and having a conversation, is so absolute that if we don't get them married quickly, they're going to do naughty things together. This is an absolute example of the carnality of love at first sight. They will be incontinent before marriage. Clubs cannot part them. It can only mean one thing. The look of love may be on their faces, but the look leads to the bed. And there's more regarding this carnal desire that pervades the forest. Celia sees it in Rosalind. When Rosalind goes into a panic about the fact that Orlando is in the forest, Celia knows what the panic is about. It's all about how Rosalind looks and what Orlando might think about how she looks. She looks like a boy. Celia understands why Rosalind is worried. Celia is very accurate in her response to Rosalind's concern. She is concerned. She wants everything to be okay. She wants him to see her as a woman, even though she's got to stay disguised as a man, and she knows the reason. So you may put a man in your belly. There is no doubt at all that for all the romanticism of all the words they speak, there is a carnal aspect to their desires. And then we have the lustful Touchstone. Now, Touchstone's an important character because he represents that cynical side of all of these views of love. He is a cynic plunk in the middle of a forest filled with romantic idyls, with happy relationships, sad relationships, true love, love at first sight. Everything around him is food for his cynicism, because he is a realist. Amongst all things, all great clowns are realists. I think he would be more attracted to Phoebe if he ever met her, because he might like her degree of cruelty. But he certainly is incredibly disinterested in false romanticism. When he starts reading the poems that are on the trees that Orlando has put up, which are truly dreadful, as we discussed last week, his reaction to them is totally cynical, and he reels off a verse offering rather crude and carnal suggestions as to what should be done to Rosalind, rather than deifying her the way Orlando does. Touchstone is not enamored of the forest. He is most definitely a townie. But he does enjoy the delights of proving himself a true sophisticate amongst all the simple peasant folk. He does that thing which is always remarkably dangerous if you decide to go and live among country folk, which is to try to prove that you are actually superior. You're going to suffer if you do. People who have generations of agrarian culture behind them are a hell of a lot wiser than somebody who comes from the town. So he even strikes up a friendship with Corin, the older shepherd, the one who Silvius proclaimed had no knowledge of or understanding of true love. And Corin is a perfect example of country lore, L-O-R-E, of the placidity and the certainties and the natural patterns of life as it is lived outside of a city. He is the farmer, he is the shepherd, he is the man who lives off of, by and for the land, the forest. And even Touchstone begrudgingly points out that Corin is a natural philosopher. But he catches him out with a very cynical observation, and one that is absolutely true. He utterly delighted to point out to this rustic, gentle shepherd that Corin, in fact, makes his living through sex. Corin says, "The greatest of my pride is to see my ewes graze and my lambs suck," and Touchstone jumps on it. That's another simple sin in you for bringing the ewes and rams together and offer to get your living by the copulation of cattle. If thou beest not damned for this, the devil himself would have no shepherds. I cannot see else how thou shouldst escape. And he makes that simple point. We may all talk about the loveliness and the simplicity and the beauty and the joy of country living, but if it wasn't for the fact that sheep breeders, pig breeders, cattle breeders are pimps, we wouldn't eat meat. And it was as true in Shakespeare's time as any other. It's the reality about relationship, but Shakespeare is bringing it down to the level of the animal, because at the level of the animal, we can actually see it in a way that we might not observe it within ourselves. Now, Touchstone is not to be outdone when it comes to a relationship. And eventually, Touchstone meets Audrey, who is probably best described as a country wench. Not a delicate flower, by any means. Not with the wit or the intelligence of a Phoebe. Phoebe is a shepherdess. Audrey herds the goats. And the notion of sheep and goats was a very clear definition in Shakespeare's time, and possibly still today to anybody who is of a biblical bent. But she does have one thing that attracts the townie Touchstone enormously. She's sexy and willing and available. And most important, gullible. Now this is a classic form for comedy. Now we may not approve of it as much in these woke times, but it is a reality. It is a human reality. And artists and writers have been exploiting this for centuries. Shakespeare didn't start it. It was way back in the time of Plautus. Shakespeare didn't finish it because right the way through, from Restoration comedy, French farce, to the present day, the musical carousel is based on this simple fact: gullible girls and dastardly men. Shakespeare uses Touchstone and Audrey as a counterpoint to all the other lovers and all the loving that is going on in the love-enchanted forest. He reminds us that for all the poetry and dreaming and the romance, that there is a fundamental desire within the hearts of all in love: consummation. We've heard about it, about Oliver and Celia. They will be incontinent before marriage. Clubs cannot part them. Orlando says, I can live no longer by thinking. I need her. I need to touch her. I need her with me. Touchstone cuts to the chase. He just goes for the consummation. But marriage of sorts is always the correct preamble to mannerly sex. So we have a wedding scene set up, and this would be a wedding scene that's almost commedia in its concept. We have protagonists, Touchstone and Audrey. We have a commentator or a chorus on the scene, which is Jaques, and we have a priest or of sorts. This wedding has been planned to fail after the consummation. This is a wedding for one purpose only: sex. Touchstone says, literally to and about Audrey, "Praise be the gods for thy foulness, sluttishness may come hereafter. But be it as it may, I will marry thee, and to that end I've been with Sir Oliver Martex, the vicar of the next village, who's promised to meet me here in the forest and couple us." This is a bad priest, and this will be an improper marriage, one that can be annulled. This is purely a way to get Audrey. Jaques intervenes. "Will you be married, Motley?" And he advises getting a good priest to do it properly. Touchstone explains his reasoning for this one. "I'm not in the mind, but I would be better to be married of him than of another, for he is not likely to marry me well, and not being well married, it'll be a good excuse for me hereafter to leave my wife." And then we must recognize exactly what that means. Not being properly married means you can be annulled straight away. The marriage never existed after the consummation. The last word on carnality in all relationships is given by Touchstone. When asked by the Duke what he's doing there, "I press in here among the rest of the country copulatives." Notice he goes instantly to the carnal. "To swear and forswear according as marriage binds and blood breaks. A poor virgin, sir, an ill-favoured thing but mine own. A pure humour of mine, sir, to take that no man else will. Rich honesty dwells like a miser, sir, in a poor house, as your pearl in your foul oyster." The pearl he seeks is carnal. The foul oyster is her. But look at the reference, as marriage binds and blood breaks. I'm only marrying her under the rules of marriage, and if blood breaks, okay. But if blood doesn't break, it's grounds for an annulment. She's not a virgin. So even in this, it's funny, it's great. Shakespeare is telling us something rather cruel about the carnal relationship as well. Even at the end of the play, in the epilogue, and I'm rushing a little because I have a couple of big announcements I want to make. Right at the end of the play, we get a clarification when all the things have come together, when Rosalind has revealed herself and she and Orlando are united. Celia reveals herself that she's not Aliena, but Celia, and she is united with Oliver. When Phoebe recognizes that she cannot marry Ganymede because Ganymede is Rosalind, is a woman, and finally accepts that she will take on Silvius. And one really has to feel sorry for Silvius at that point, because she agrees to marry him as part of the deal. If I can't marry you, I promise I'll marry him. He's delighted. He's going to be a victim for the rest of his life. Nothing is ever just neat and tidy at the end of a Shakespeare, because he always wants us to look at the realities. At the end of the play, this is rather strange epilogue. And there is an important message in it as well. In the epilogue, Rosalind has the last word on the relationship between men and women regarding love and how it works. In it, she says, "I charge you, O women, for the love you bear to men, to like as much of this play as please you." You enjoy it. But you enjoy it, that's good. You enjoy it. "And I charge you, O men, that between you and the women the play may please." She's not saying, enjoy it all for your own sake. Enjoy it as much as the players may please you. She says, between you and the women the play may please. In other words, men, Like what the women tell you to like. It's the only safe way in matters of love. He has demonstrated to us in this play as many of the aspects of love as he could manage to squeeze in. And there are others within there that I haven't had time to go into. But of course, you'll enjoy thoroughly when you come to see the production. But this is a play whose sole purpose, I believe, apart from to entertain, is to show to us that that magic four-letter word has a multitude of meanings, that one can feel absolute, eternal, determined, profound, worshipful love for somebody in spite of the cruel way they treat you. That you can meet somebody and in a moment know that that's the person you want to be with for the rest of your life. That you can love in spite of all the tribulations that life can offer you. That you can maintain that love at a distance. Absence indeed can make the heart grow fonder. And out of sight not necessarily means out of mind. All of these aspects of the loving condition are displayed quite magnificently in this play, which is why I repeat myself ad nauseum. I think this is Shakespeare's greatest comedy, because it's the one in which he tackles the biggest issue possible in the human condition, love. Hatred is not an absence of love. Hatred is often spawned by love. Fear is not an absence of love. Fear is often caused by love. Distaste is not an absence of love. It is merely a redirection of what we love. But what we do as part of the human condition is love. And Shakespeare was a lover of love. So, there are my points on As You Like It. Do feel free to disagree with me. I'm always delighted for your comments, and I'm delighted for the emails. And if I don't get to respond to the emails as much as I should, it's because I'm incredibly busy at the moment. There's a question straight away. Rosalind is such a merchant. The first thing she does in Arden is I don't know. I have to look at this. Buy the sheepcoat. Yes, but again, he's also demonstrating in that just the way town people treat the countryside. You know, all those lovely idyllic villages that you see in England, with the lovely idyllic, especially in the Cotswolds. My friend in Stratford-on-Avon will know about this. Beautiful idyllic villages where the house prices are so high because all the townsfolk want to have them as second homes. That happened just as much in Shakespeare's time as it does today. The idea of rich people coming in and buying up local property and putting local people out of work and out of homes and out of any prospects. There's a satire in that as well. But Rosalind loves the countryside, and Celia loves Arden and willingly could waste her time in it. That's the talk of town folk. Who's going to buy that cottage? Oh, that young shepherd who's not really thinking about it at the moment. Okay, I'll buy it. Phoebe's mockery speaks like Troilus in Chaucer's poem, maybe Shakespeare's Troilus too. Yes, indeed, I agree with that. And in fact, Chaucer's Troilus and Cressidas is a wonderful read, and Shakespeare's poem is not bad. But I would recommend everybody go and read. I haven't read that in years, but it's a magnificent piece. Chaucer is magnificent anyway, and Chaucer always was full of the realities of the human relationship. Pre-Shakespeare, in the time of Richard II, and anybody who's read the Canterbury Tales knows that a lot of those tales we describe them as bawdy, just honest. They're about honest human reactions, about the interrelationship between people, and wonderful. Might actually do a session, might do a webinar or two on the Canterbury Tales sometime next year. Have to reread it again. We'll get round to that. Anyway, I wanted to make one other rather important announcement. Next Friday, we're taking an opportunity because I will be in technical rehearsal for As You Like It. So next week's webinar is a very special one. It's going to be hosted by my friend and colleague, Sharon McCune, who is associate producer at PICT, and she has a special guest. One of the issues that we're addressing with our new Expand the Canon series is Native American writing, Native American theatre. And to my mind, it is not regarded enough. Does not have its rightful place in the canon of American theatre. There is wonderful writing out there, and we're including at least two of Native American writers in our Expand the Canon series. But one of our colleagues and friends on that is Randy Reinholds. And Randy will be joining Sharon next week to discuss this general area of Native American playwrights, Native American theatre, and the very important topics that they address, including what was attempted as the re-education of Native American children, which led to some disastrous results. And one of those plays we hope to be actually presenting as a full production in our next season, the 26th season. So that will be next Friday, usual time. I may be here just to say hello at the beginning, but it will be hosted by Sharon, and Randy Reinholds will be the very special guest. And I really do encourage you to watch this because he's brilliant. He is an absolute authority on the topic, and you will learn so much just by joining us on that particular webinar. And to say finally, I mentioned the next season. Let's make sure we have one by please responding to our 25 for 25 appeal. If you can, within the next, whatever you've donated before, and you're not restricted to this number, you can always send as much as you can afford. But between now and the end of this month, send us a check or make a donation of $25. If enough people do that, we will be home clear for the rest of the year and ready to go forward into our next season. We're always asking for money. We're always appealing. It's one of the curses of American regional theatre, one of the curses of not-for-profit theatres, that we always have to ask for you to help us. That request is genuine. That request is important. And as I've always said, every dollar you send us really matters. So we'll see you next week. Join us for a very interesting discussion on Native American theatre. Have a wonderful week yourselves. Bye for now.